Welcome to Long Box Diving, where we pull comics out of the long box. Take two. I got another X Factor comic, and I really enjoyed this one. I was more interested in this comic than I was issue 4. Um, issue 4 was okay, but this one I feel is really good for what it is. It's pretty good, my opinion. Um, we get a hot start. Right off the bat, we're introduced to a guy, and this guy is going to be important. We're also rejoined by several villains we know, Tower, Frenzy, but also Stinger and Time Shadow or something. I forget his name. Think of Madrix, but more with time. Um, and of course, they're all trying to capture this guy. Why? We're gonna find out. And it's definitely a good way to start a comic because right off the bat you're hooked because this guy's important and we're introduced to this guy and he is the main arc of this comic. He is the main plot of this comic, and he is a mutant. That is something that like issue 1 really lacked. Issue 2 it kind of lacked, sort of. Um, but this one is like X Factor is about picking up mutants and helping out mutants, and this one's so was issue 4 had a problem with this, where the focus of the comic itself was not a mutant they were gonna help, right? It wasn't X Files where we get our new case and we have to take care of the case. This one was, and it felt really good to read. So right off the bat, we're introduced. It's like the start of an episode, something like X Files, where you see the villains and they're attacking the person you're trying to save, right? And so you already know who the bad guy is. You know what the main main point of this comic is. How's that going to work? We're then brought to our heroes, and our heroes are in a state of relaxation. They're not they're in a passive state, right? They're not actively going out and chasing a bad guy or something. They're just exercising, and they're talking. And Jean brings up a good point: is their role here is to basically fit into the mutants' hysteria. And she thinks they might be helping increase mutant hysteria and that mutants are a problem. I don't know if I agree, but they are definitely trying to fit in that niche of, oh, you have a mutant problem, call us. And so that, I mean, it was a good point, and I liked it. Then they had a whole scene about Bobby and Hank, and Bobby froze the rings around Hank's feet because Bobby's a prankster. Not a big fan of that. Kind of boring. But it's okay because we quickly move back to the guy. And we know right off the bat, we find out about him. He's a drug addict. And we learn a little bit about his character. Is he looks to his like ex-partner, wife, whatever she is. Is like, can you help me? I need some help. And she turns him down. And she is how we learn he's a mutant. Because X Factor's ad plays on the TV. And she's like, oh, X Factor. I'll go to them. I have a mutant problem. And we figure out this guy's a mutant, this guy's a drug addict. He's the main point of this comic. So we learned a little bit about the main point. That's really nice. Some more stuff happens, and alarms are going off. They do a whole part that's where Vera and Hank are going shopping, and Bobby's there, and it's... I think it would fit in a story for a TV show, right? It'd be that nice little gag of, oh, look, Hank is uncomfortable in weird clothing, right? And Vera's all about being weird. She's very, like, I'm out. She's one of those people that are very much, I'm out there. I'm proud of who I am. I'm putting myself out there. Hank is not. Hank is very, very straight-laced, but he's still trying because he likes Vera. And it was a nice interaction. But again, I I mean I don't know if if it's working for me. Put it that way. I don't know if I'm the intended audience or if it's working for me. Um, but it is character development in that sense. So if it goes anywhere, great. If it goes anywhere, cool. If it doesn't, it just feels meh. Like, I mean, it was just there to add some more fluff to the pages, right? So it is what it is. Something I do like that is character development is Arthur and I forget his name, Flame Guy. We're calling him Flame Guy. Um, and they stop and talk, and it's like Flame Guy looks at Cyclops and like Cyclops has everything he could ever want. Why is he such a downer? And Arthur, who can't speak, remember, Arthur can't speak, and yet he knows. Arthur knows, and so he just shares pictures of Madeline and Jean and Scott, and Flame Guy isn't putting it together. Flame the Guy's like, wait, what? Should we talk to Jean? And Arthur's like, no, don't. For a child, Arthur is very empathetic, and like this little interaction is very, very telling and interesting. Um, it tells you a lot about Arthur's character, and it also tells you a lot about Flame Guy. Flame Guy does not have that understanding about people that Arthur does, right? And but at the same time, Flame Guy just looked to Arthur and asked what he should do. That's important because before, Flame Guy would not treat Arthur with respect because Arthur looked weird. And for Flame Guy, if you look weird, you're a mutant. But right here, you can see Flame Guy's like, oh, you're actually worth something, and you know something, and he asks for advice from Arthur, and that's a big step from where he just was. That's really good. Um, the villains, led by Frenzy, go to the ex-wife's apartment and nab her, and of course Susie, that's what her name is, and they're like, Susie, where's the junkie? Because they think the junkie went straight for Susie, right? Well, he did not. He couldn't. And Susie's like, I have no idea. And she tries to run, but sure enough, they catch her because, of course, they do. And now she's a bargaining chip, and she's held hostage. Well, X Factor, tipped off by Susie, find the junkie. And this guy is an interesting mutant. We find out very, very, very fast he's a mutant amplifier. And you notice effects in 3 of the 5, right? Jean Grey's telekinetic powers and telepathic powers and all that go crazy. Scott's beams start shooting uncontrollably, and Bobby Drake starts turning into the spiky version of himself. You know when like later on Bobby Drake goes full wild and he loses control and he turns into a huge ice monster? He was starting here. That was Spiky Drake. But you know who wasn't affected? The Beast and an Angel, which is interesting. I don't know if that means that their powers can't be amplified. It either means they can't be amplified, or the junkie can't amplify them, and he can't amplify any animalistic body mutations, right? Because Bobby Drake's doesn't really count. His is more of a power of ice, but Hank is just bodily changed, and Angel's just bodily changed. There's no real other modifications done with their mutant powers, and so it's interesting. I guess we'll get to find out because this guy's going to be important, and that's something this comic does really well. Is it sets up the next couple comics to be something that's worth reading. You read this one sets it up really well, and it gets you hooked to a point where it's like, I want to find out what happens in the next issue. And that's something you want. Because as a whole, you can take a whole run of comics and say, oh, that was a great set of comics. But if the first 4 issues are really bad, you don't want to continue. It's not worth paying money. And this one gives you something that is very much, oh, do you want to keep reading? It's a good setup. It's a good plot right here. What's going to happen? I mean, it's good. I like that. We get this guy, the junkie, who's like, I need to be away from everybody. I'm not going to let you guys take me in. He's a scared person. And he knows what his powers do to mutants. He knows that his powers make mutants drug addicts because they're addicted to him. He amplifies their powers. Of course they're addicted to him. And he's like, I can't be around people. So he tries to leave, but Hank's like, and Hank, the straight-laced one of all people, stops him and says, it's going to be okay. Calm down. It's going to be okay. We can take care of you. And then they immediately get attacked, which is a super interesting segue, because Hank here has said something, we're going to take care of you, and then immediately they get attacked. Can he keep that? Can he keep that promise? And they get attacked, and the bad guys have Susie. And the junkie, I can't remember his name, the junkie's like, okay, Frenzy has her by the neck, Frenzy's going to kill her, and the junkie's like, I'll do whatever you ask. And so Frenzy empowers the bad guys. He empowers Tower and Frenzy and Stinger and Time Shadow, whatever his name is. And the junkie does it. And of course, these bad guys are taking on the X Factor team here, and they're handling them pretty solidly. And I think that was a really good move. A really good move. And I say that for one reason. We've shown that X Factor can pretty solidly take on Tower, can handle Frenzy, no problem. Now, if there are 4 of them, yes, X Factor could have a harder time. They probably would. But giving the bad guys a justifiable reason to handily beat the X Factor team is really good for the future. Because the X Factor team is not coordinated. At this point, they are not working together as a team. They are not working together like they should be. They did for a little bit when trying to rescue Hank. But they are not working as a unit at this point. And so to have a reason for the bad guys to so handedly beat them gives X Factor a good reason to learn to work together. If the bad guy can beat you, and they can beat you really easily, you've got to learn to work together. You have to improve. And that's super important for this team right now, because right now, they don't have it. They don't have that teamwork that the original X-Men did. So, and they need it. So in order for them to improve, they're going to have to do several things. Like tell each other the secrets they've been keeping. And work together. And trust each other. And that'll make for some dramatic moments in the next few comics. And it's really important. But X Factor gets beat. And they get beat royally. And we see all of them down, 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 down. And the bad guys won this round. The bad guys took them. The bad guys got Junkie and Susie. And they're going to go after the boy next. Right? And we get a final panel. The Junkie is taken to a man we're all familiar with, Apocalypse. Like, oh boy, Apocalypse is always a fun villain because he comes with some caveats, like he's a really strong villain and he also has the 4 horsemen. So, like, Apocalypse is fun. He's a good villain. I can't wait to see where this goes. Um, this definitely, it feels like an Apocalypse that is plotting something, as opposed to the Apocalypse that you will see where he just straight up attacks and beats up on people. This one feels more calculating and more clever, and I like that. I can't wait to see where the next one goes because I'm enjoying this. It's set up a bunch of plot lines right here. This issue has set up so many plot lines that I can't wait to see where they pay off and how it works out. And not only that, but it also feels very natural that this mutant here is important and he's treated that way, right? I don't care what mutant it is. If your team is about saving mutants, that should be the point of your comic. And this one it was, and it's going to be the point of the next couple comics, and that's really good for me to see. I like that. I'll see you next time in Longbox.